Welcome, Siranjeevi sir. Siranjeevi sir.
ரம்யா மேம்
Pravina.
இன்னும் சார் ஜாயின் பண்ணல நினைக்கிறேன் மேம்.
Obviously. Then you start play your PPT till
Oh.
sir. Welcome, Siranjeevi sir. Sir, welcome, sir. Welcome to our STTP. Siranjeevi sir. Good afternoon, sir. Is this audible, sir? Good afternoon, sir. Your mic is in mute mode, sir, actually. Yes,
Now it's
fine.
okay?
Yeah, sir, fine. Nice to meet you, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, great to have you for the afternoon session of this STTP.
Okay, thank you, madam.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Just have a glance on this PPT once, sir. Once it finishes, we'll start the session of us.
Okay,
Because
madam. Okay.
actually we have around 40 participants. They're on the go, as you know. It is as of now it is 159. So probably within
Okay.
2-5 they'll join. So we're waiting for their.
Okay.
They're on the
Okay.
go. That is why, sir. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So, good afternoon, participants. We have Dr. Sranjeevi for the afternoon session of us. We are very pleasant to have you, sir, for the afternoon session of us. And yes, sir. And Praveena, ma'am, she is organizer of this STTP. Can you please brief about sir to the participants? Thank you, ma'am. Over to Praveena.
Sure, ma'am. Welcome, sir, Dr. James, sir, for this afternoon session.
Thank you.
Okay, this is Praveena. Here to introduce our today's chief guest, Dr. K. Siranjeevi from Portugal. He did this BTech and MTech from JNTU, Hyderabad in 2003 and 2010. And he completed his PhD from NIT Roorkee in 2019 with the research related to machine learning, optimization algorithm for image compression. Presently, he is doing a PDF in University of Beira Interior, Portugal from 2019 with research related to cloud robotics. He is dealing with different deep learning algorithms, cloud technology, and security issues for better guiding robots in doing tasks, especially for security, fully homomorphic encryption, which is a research interest doing Microsoft, Amazon, Google, etc. for providing good security in cloud environment. In this connection, he has more than 30 Science Index publication with more than 400 Google Scholar citation. Welcome you, sir. So now it's over to you, sir.
Okay. Thanks for your brief introduction.
You're welcome,
So,
sir.
is my audio audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's audible.
Audible.
So I hope many are the students.
No, sir. They are faculties from all over India, sir, and with few research scholars.
Okay, no students from BTech level.
No, sir.
Oh, all are faculty.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Welcome you all for my presentation. So here is my presentation. Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So good afternoon once again. Here I am presenting you application of deep learning algorithms for cloud robotics. So in this, I'm going to discuss about a brief introduction about robotics and why we. Hello.
Yes, sir. It is audible.
Okay. If any interruption, please let me know. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. And cloud robotics. Why? What is the need to go for a cloud robotics? And then, especially, my concentration is on how a robot recognize a face and object, and what are the methods used for it, like PCA and some deep learning algorithms. And finally, security issues. In that, I'm going to discuss these three important topics like cryptography, image processing based algorithms, and finally, fully homomorphic encryption, which I am dealing with. And as you all know that robotic is a autonomous mission which performs many tasks in different fields. But the challenging task in robotics is speed limitations. These days, everybody is looking for this. We all need very high speed performance robots. So this is main limitation of existing robots, and onboard circuit limitations means we can't fabricate everything on robot. So that is the onboard circuit limitation. And as you know that the processor and memory requirements are very important for robot, and we can adapt this with the cloud technology. So not only this, many more issues are there with the ordinary robots. So that's why we move on to the cloud robotics. So as you all know that the cloud technology recently from last 10 years, it's going to be drastically increased in the field of research. So here is cloud robotics. What are the drawbacks of that robots can be avoided with this cloud robotics? So how it means you can adapt the technology of cloud so that you can avoid what are the limitations so far existing in robotics. So here the thing is, whatever the robots here you are seeing in the screen, on the screen you can those all robots communicate themselves, and always in proportionally they share their knowledge to the cloud, so that it's like a sharing of knowledge among the robots themselves, and they learn, they do the things better way. It's a continuous learning process as like a human beings. So in that point of view, the cloud robotics these days are growing very fastly. I think all of you saw this movie. It's from Matrix movie. So here that girl is this girl is a robot. So once this action is completed, she want to go with that aeroplane, helicopter, but she don't know how to drive that. So this girl will ask this boy, so that he will program accordingly, and he will send it to the that girl. So he will do the task accordingly. So you can assume that that is a robot, and this guy is a cloud. So I want to show you one video. So how Amazon people are using cloud robotics for their tasks like packing the packing their things. So just have a look on this video. Thank you for watching this. So that's how Amazon people are using cloud robotics for their tasks like packing and delivering the things, and they have some private cloud. So you observe that among the robots, they are communicating together and they are sharing their knowledge themselves so that they learn more about the environment. So they do tasks in better way. So here is one more application of cloud robotics. I think all you heard about this. It's a Google self-driving car. So it's possible majorly because of this cloud technology. So here this car get the information from the cloud about the traffic and to avoid the collisions, and they are using some advanced sensors also in addition to this. So obviously this Google self-driving car exists because of the cloud technology. So you can assume this car as a one robot, so autonomous machine. So, and here are some cloud providers. You can hire or you can buy a part of cloud server, and those are Google, Amazon, Microsoft Azure. I think you all saw this Microsoft Azure, and IBM also providing, and this is European Union's maintained in Austria, and where I was now, there also one data center is there. It's in Kovilia. So you can see that this is the top view of cloud in Kovilia, where I am living right now. And here you can see I am with that data center. And clouds are partitioned into private, public, and hybrid clouds. So if you have a private cloud, means no need of any issues you can't you will not see. But whereas in public cloud, you will see some security issues as it is shared by so many people. And hybrid cloud means it's a part of partially private and partially public. So some issues are there with the hybrid cloud also. So most of the mostly clouds are public clouds. So there are some security issues. Someone may steal your information as you are keeping your information in cloud. So you need to be very careful about security also. So so far existing technology is with cryptography and some image processing based algorithms. So these are very common. These are existing ones. And finally, recent one from 2019, that's called as a fully homomorphic encryption. So if someone is interested to do work on security, so better to concentrate on this fully homomorphic encryption. So it's it exists from 2009. Still, so much of research is going on with this, and so much scope is also there with this. And in case of robot face recognition, so how a robot will see a face. So here is one GIF file you can observe. And same way, here is a object detection. So what is the need of cloud technology in these tasks is whenever a robot or a car is moving, autonomous car is moving, so it should avoid the collisions. It is possible only with the high speed recognitions. So that is possible with the cloud technology. So I want to explain you how robot face recognition with the cloud with some security issues I am going to discuss now. Here, training images and testing images. Here is the training data. So that database is trained with some training algorithms. Their features are extracted, and these features are called as trained features. So once features are trained, you can ask for any person to recognize, so that algorithm will recognize whether that person is exist in the database or not. So here are the given an image, tell whether there is any human face. If there is, where is it, and who is that who is that person? So there are so many applications, as you all know, that in biometrics. So if you deal with cloud technology, so that face recognition is somewhat modified versions here. So it is a face owner and user. The face owner means database. The database is encrypted with some encryption algorithm, and it will be either features or the entire algorithm you can run in cloud. And user want to know any person's identification, then he will encrypt with the same algorithm, and he will send it to the cloud, and cloud will say yes, he is there, he is this with this with respective templates he will give back. So this is a principal component analysis, face recognition with principal component analysis. Here you can see this is the database, and these are the algorithms which encrypts the database, and it will be now we call it as an encrypted face image database, and which is in the cloud. And so whenever required, so you can run the algorithm, so that you can get back whether that input image is existing or not in that database. So it is a simple principal component analysis. It's a very old algorithm, principal component analysis. It extracts the major principal components of the database based on I don't want to go in detail about this. So I think everybody knows about that. So here is a database. And we are extracting the features by taking the average and subtraction here. So and after that, we have to normalize the face vector here. So if you did this, the size of that eigenvectors becomes very huge. Here you can observe here, and so that so we apply here dimensionality reduction. That simply invert this A transpose with A transpose and A, so that becomes size by 40 by 40. That's the beauty of dimensional reduction. It reduced from 10,000 by 10,000 to 40 by 40, and these are called as the features. Based on these features, one can know what is the unknown faces. So here some image encryption algorithms I am going to discuss here. That is pseudo random generators with the Choctaw key sequence. So this is the logistic map where you can get some matrix of random numbers. So these random numbers are very random, very random in the sense you will not see from lakhs of elements. You can't see repeated ones. That is the beauty of this logistic map K1. And then we apply those to a linear feedback shift register. Here is so here those bits are shifted left, and finally this is key 2 and previous one is key 1, and K1 and K2 or XOR operation will to get a K value, and with this K value we are encrypting the image. Finally, this is the encrypted image, and here these are all comes under cryptography algorithms for image compression. This is Hill cipher. I think most of you people know about this thing. So it was invented by Alice Hill, and the process is string of English letters A to Z is represented with its corresponding numbers 0, 1, 2, 3 like that. So accordingly, we can encrypt and decrypt the images. So here I'm showing you an example of encryption from LOW. So here LO with secret key of 20, this one, and L is 11 and O is 14. So these are multiplied, and which is modulus of 26. You will get this, and same way VE, we will get this, and finally that ciphertext is becomes CDQF instead of LOW. Instead of LOW, we will get back to the CDQF, and which will be transferred to the receiver. And in case of if I have a ciphertext here and I know the key, I will get back my original by doing some operation like this. Okay. So finally you will get back your input. So here finally I get back my my original character here, LOW. So in same way, three guys RSA. So these guys are RSA. So this is also one kind of homomorphic encryption. Homomorphic encryption means which allows addition, subtraction, multiplication on encrypted data. So this is also one kind of partially homomorphic encryption, since it allows only few additions and few multiplications, and the process of encrypting with RSA is this: by choosing a p-value and q-value and n-value, we can get f of n value, and from this we can choose a d-value and e-value such that ed mod f of n is equal to 1. So by choosing d-value is equal, we get e-value is 29. By choosing other values of d, we get other values of e like that. So once if you choose e-value 23 and d-value is equal to 0, 8, 7, to suppose I want to encode this, with this reference we can encode this as like this. In same way, a reverse process in decryption, and this is one more advanced encryption standard. This is very secure. It was invented in 2001, and it depends upon your requirement. You can choose for security. Depends on your choice. Like you can have 10, 12, and 14 rounds. In proportional, you will have a number of bits 128, 192, and 256 like that. So as more security is requirements, in the sense you will have a more bits. So this is the AES encryption scheme in KN rounds here. KN rounds, the same process is repeated with different keys. So finally you will have a final encrypted versions. And this is one kind of image based encryption algorithm that is called DNA. It is based on the human DNA. So here A binds with T and G binds with C. So you can assume A value is 0, 0, T 1, 1 like this. So suppose if I want to encrypt 228, so you can represent its equivalent binary number is this, and then finally based on these values you will have this. So such kind of options we have so many here like this. You can choose any one of these. So it is a one kind of image processing based security algorithm, and this is a genetic algorithm. It is also based on the human genetics. It depends upon two processes. One is crossover and another one is mutation. So crossover means here is the binary. This is one solution and this is another solution. Just we swap these bits. So its equivalent decimal number becomes different. So in that way, we are changing the values so that And same way, you can go for another step is mutation, where 1 becomes 0 and 0 becomes 1, like that. So once if you go for a decimal number of this is different and this is different. Like that way, genetic algorithm can also used for image encryption. And this is one more image based algorithm, that's bit slicing and rotation. So here we partition the this is the image, and its equivalent binary representation is this. And first bit slice means these ones 1 1. That means most MSB bits comes here, and next MSB, like that. And this is finally least LSB bits here. So now we perform some rotation by 90 degrees, 180, 270, 90 degrees, like that. So finally, after all, you will have like this. So its equivalent decimal number is like this. That means 160 will goes to 224, 170 to 172, 184, 160, like this. So in same way, you can decrypt this by doing some inverse process. But these algorithms are not so secure as you can extract the original information by iterative operations. And this is RCP, rubric cube principle. So I don't want to go much details about this. I want to show you some results and discussions. So here I took a image from oral database, and its histogram is in right side. And these are the scatter plots. Scatter plots means pixel to next pixel. It shows neighboring pixels relation. So here you can see this is it's almost all linear path, linear. So once let's see after encryption what their shape is, histogram shape as well as this scatter plot shape. So if you observe here, these are the after encryption of input image with the different algorithms and their histograms. And here is, if you observe here, this becomes it occupies all over the graph here. So if it is linear, in the sense it is not a good secure algorithm. If it is non-linear, means it is a good secure algorithm, like this. So you can see other with other algorithms also. So if you observe here, you can see in this case, this is genetic algorithm outcome. You can see the face of who is in the one can know who is he. But here in this case and in this case, no one knows what is there inside that. So these are different algorithms, and these are the ORL database. And so I calculated the security in terms of NPCR, USCI, PSNR, MSC, and CC. So among those, GS and NPCR value, PSNR is better. And in case of time to encrypt the image, Chocos is very fast as compared to others. And finally, in recognition, without encryption 80.4, whereas in GA you will have the same recognition accuracy 80.4. So in all terms, GA is better than all other algorithms. But in terms of security, it is very least one. So suppose I run the same algorithm in cloud and in robot, and cloud specifications here and robot specifications here, and I observed that time of response for recognizing the image is 26.74 with robot, whereas with cloud 14.50, which we are seeking for. And next topic to discuss is face recognition with deep learning algorithms. I think all you know this artificial neural network architecture. So here these are the inputs. These are the inputs and its respective weights here. And xi, w, I, z. Addition of all those things will transfer to, will be given to a one activation function, and activation function will decide the output here. So you can see here how a character 2 is recognized with a ANN. So here the first layer is called input layer, and last one is output layer, and these are the hidden layers. These two are the hidden layers. One can train this ANN by back propagation, by updating the weights of individual neurons like this. So once it is trained, you can give an input and it will recognize finally what it is like this. It's like some display devices, 0, 1, 2, 3 like that. So when you give some input, 0 will blow. When 1 will give, 1 will blow like that. And same way, how ANN recognize dog or cat, it's all about training. It's all about training. So the major issues with ANNs are, so you have to train the algorithm at a quicker rate within a short time, and accuracy should be very much good. So recent studies have observed that it's almost all 99.6% it is coming. It's more than human accuracy. So that's why we all are using these deep learning algorithms for face recognition, any tasks. And ANN has some drawbacks, so we move on to the convolution neural networks. So convolution neural networks are the combinations of ANN and those segmentation techniques like filtering techniques. So we can get an edge or line or anything else by doing some filtering operations with some canals or filters by doing convolution. So you can assume that this is the segmented regions, and this is the ANN, finally ANN, fully connected network for classification. So here you can observe here, I took RGB image here, RGB, and this is my filter. I do respective multiplications on each part of the image, and its respective values will give, you can see here, and it's a summation will leads to one output here. So this is after convolution, and this is before convolution. So once this is convolution layer, once it is done, then it is given to a activation function. There are so many activation functions here. Mostly used one is ReLU, and here whatever the suppose here is a negative value is there, you can nullify that to 0 based on the outcome. You can round off its values to a nearest values, and then followed by a pooling layer. Pooling layer means here I used a max pooling, or one can use the average pooling also. In max pooling, out of these 4 elements, one I took like 8. Here is a maximum value of these 4 is 6. Maximum value of these is 9, like that. So this is convolution about the convolution neural networks. So these days, so many people are using these for many applications, and as so many convolution layers followed by pooling layers are there, that we call as a deep learning. As we go deeper into the features, then classification is performed well. So accuracy of recognition is also good. So that's why we call it as a deep learning algorithms. Convolution network, if you use more number of convolution neural networks in a network, those are called as a deep learning algorithms. So many people are proposing so many nets, depends upon their applications, but mostly used ones, mostly commonly used ones are I'm going to discuss now. So that is called as first one is LeNet. It was in 1995. It's between 90s and 1995, after invention of convolutional neural networks, and it is used for low resolution black and white object recognition, as it is first one. And with this formula, you can know what is the outcome of a convolutional neural network size after doing convolutions. So KH kernel size, mean kernel or filter size, stride, and if someone may go for a padding also, depends upon their requirements. So this is the simple LeNet, which is used for black and white object recognition. So it takes 32 by 32 as an image. So means it's a very less sized image. That means whatever the image you have to resize it to 32 by 32, and finally convolutional layer followed by pooling layer. Pooling layer is for reducing the dimensionality of matrix, and then 5 by 5 convolution. This 5 by 5 indicates that size of the kernel, and 2 by 2 means we usually take 2 class 2. Among 2 class 2, whether it's the maximum value or you can take average value also, and 5 by 5 convolution, and followed by 2 fully connected layers. These are called 2 fully connected layers. These 2 are used for the classification, and these are used for the feature extractions. Suppose one can do research on feature extraction, image feature extraction by means of convolutional neural networks, and one can do with this classification with the different algorithms, like we can have you can use here is ANN. So you can replace this classification with some other techniques also. So many existing techniques are there, but I have to use with this fully connected layer as it is trained. So, and in there are so many databases available for face recognition, object recognition, whatnot, for everything. And you have its respective training weights also. You can have and see your you can run your experiments. And this is next one is AlexNet. Usually these days people are running these nets in GPU instead of CPU to speed up the process. Suppose if you have a GPU of limited size, then you can go for a parallel operation that is done with this AlexNet. So you can see here, it has 2 parallel operations are going on, this one and this one, and some connectivity between them here. So this is for what means if you have a limited GPU, and if you have such kind of GPUs of 2, then you can run your algorithm, your CNN on 2 GPUs to train the network like this. So here 11 by 11 and stride is of 4. This stride indicates that how much shift it will show you, how much shift you are doing that. This is AlexNet. It gives you 85% of accuracy. And here in the AlexNet, we use a group convolution. So it is a normal convolution here, whereas in group convolution, suppose if it is a RGB, these frames are partitioned like this, and we do the convolution to speed up the process. That is called as a group convolution. A group of layers we are convoluting at an instant. That's why it is called as a group convolution. And this is which is a 16 net, and which is 16 net means we have 16 layers, excluding the pooling layers. So this is which is 16. means 16 layers, and which is 19 means 19 layers. You can have a 93% of accuracy. It's already proved with 3 fully connected layers here. And here is a Google Net. It was proposed by Google people. So they took the advantage of one by one convolution, and same way one by one convolution cascaded with 3 by 3 convolutions, one by one with 5 by 5, and same way max pooling followed by one by one convolution. These all are they are proposing to speed up the process, to speed up the learning process. And this is ResNet. It is also very useful technique. So you have so many variants of this ResNet in literature. It achieves a accuracy of 96 to 96.4. And this is one more net. It's called DenseNet. So here, if you observe here, there are some interconnectivity between first input layer to the second layer and first layer to the third layer, like that. Some interconnectivity is there. And here is a convolution is done with the group convolution here. And in mobile FaceNet, they used a depth-wise separable convolution. So to reduce the number of computations, as you all know that multiplication process is a complicated process than additive process. That's why what they did is, these are the frames, and these frames are partitioned like this, and we do the n by 1 convolution, and we further we group all those, and finally do the 1 by 1 convolution. That is called as a point-wise convolution to speed up the process. And this is a ShuffleNet, which takes the advantage of that depth-wise separable convolution. And this is FNet. This is based on the concept of partitioning the matrix into vectors like this. This is a vertical vector, and this is a horizontal vector. So one can write like this. So that these will be trained in with one GPU, and this will be trained with another GPU to speed up the process. And finally, I'm going to discuss about this homomorphic encryption. So actually, homomorphic encryption in the sense encryption which allows you to do the addition, multiplication, subtraction, all arithmetic operations. Suppose all arithmetic operations on encrypted data, those are called as a homomorphic encryption algorithms. Okay. So this is the brief history of cryptography. So as you all know that this is the message. It's added with +3. This is the outcome, and same in encryption. So encryptions are of two types: symmetric and asymmetric. In symmetric, encryption and decryption use the same key, whereas in asymmetric, both are different. So I think all you know this Sharan name. It's he made some revolution in information theory. Encryption and decryption use the same key. So these are the RSA algorithm people, and the same way these three guys proposed a homomorphic encryption. That means they proved that one can do addition and multiplication on encrypted data, but those are very limited multiplications only. It allows only limited multiplications. So imagine people, if you observe here, this is the you can see this is the encrypted version of no one can decrypt it, this one. So first RSA proved that addition and subtraction is possible. So here, whatever the X value is there, which will be kept into the cloud by means of a let's assume that some function f of x is done on this. So we want some privacy here. So what you do is simply encrypt that, and if someone want to see also, they can't see it. So our data, ours is very secure. So here some proof of how RSA algorithm is multiplicative and additive in encryption domain. Encryption of M1, message 1, message 2. Finally, encryption version of M1, encryption of M2 is equal to M1, M2 multiple version of M1, M2 and encryption of same. This is called as a multiplicative homomorphism. So RSA does not support additive operation. So here this concept is why we only concentrated on sum and product means. As you know, XOR operation is a additive operation and AND operation is a multiplication operation. So one can realize any gates with these XOR and AND gates. So because XOR and AND is completely, any function is combination of XOR and AND gates, as you all know that. This is simply how we can realize any circuit with XOR and AND gates. This is also same. See here, we are doing some XOR operation and AND operation. Finally, is the function of all these x1, x2, x3, x4, and those are the 4 messages. So, but as of now, only either addition or multiplication is possible, and that also only one time only. But fully homomorphic encryption means you can do it many times. Like suppose I did a first multiplication, and onto which you can do another multiplication, onto which you can do some addition, like that. If you do in that case, in that way, that is called as a fully homomorphic encryption. What our requirement is in case of convolution neural networks, we do so many multiplications and so many additions. So which allows all those is called as a fully homomorphic encryption. So next the security is migrated to next level with this fully homomorphic encryption. So so many people are using these days this fully homomorphic encryption. Let's some example, amazing people are using this private cloud computing, health wallet to secure the information of patients' information. So fully homomorphic encryption. Let us see. People try to do this for years and years with no success. Finally, so in 2008, this boy named Genti invented that fully homomorphic encryption is possible. How does it work? What is the magic is here? So they represent whatever the input is there into the polynomials onto which encryption is done. Suppose it is a polynomials and its additive is this and its multiplicative is this, and same way in matrix is this. So how about integers? So these 4 guys are from Microsoft Research. Microsoft Research Group. These 4 guys are doing so much research on this fully homomorphic encryption. So suppose to encrypt a bit B, pick a random large multiple of P, say P into Q. Pick a random small number. If B is equal 0, that becomes even. If B is equal to 1, it becomes odd. So if you observe here, when you do some additive operation, some noise is introduced here. Some noise is introduced, and same way to decrypt the ciphertext, take a C mod P. it recovers the noise. How secure this is? By means of a graded common divisor. You can have what is the security of that. You can see. But as I said, addition and multiplication will introduce some noise in the after doing addition and multiplication. So some noise is introduced. So that's why we go for a approximate DCD. Suppose, let me explain this in detail. XORing two encrypted bits means addition of two encrypted bits here. C1 is this and C2 is this, suppose. Then its addition in encrypted domain is like this. As I said previously, if B1 is equal to 0, B2 is equal to 1, or in these two combinations, it becomes an odd value, and in these two combinations, it becomes an even value. And now, so B1 XOR B2. So as a number of multiplications and additions are going on, the noise also grows. So here, if you observe here, the initial noise is twice in case of addition. Similarly, in case of multiplication of two encrypted messages, it's almost all square. So as noise is increasing, so you are not able to decrypt the same input. So you have to remove this noise. So that is possible with the, if the noise is greater than p/2, then decryption will output an incorrect bit. So we have to care about this noise while doing multiplication and addition. So what did we accomplish? We can do lots of addition and sometimes multiplications also. So that we call as a somewhat homomorphic encryption, and some are called as a leveled fully homomorphic encryptions and fully homomorphic encryption. Like that way they're classified based on your requirement. Suppose your requirement is only 10 multiplications, then you can go with the somewhat homomorphic encryption. Or if you want to go for a 20, then you can go for a level homomorphic encryption. Suppose if you want to go for a many multiplications and additions, then you need to go for a fully homomorphic encryption. So here what we do here is, that is called as a bootstrapping. So bootstrapping means how it works is, so now initially noise is 0. As we do some operations, noise grows. Then what we do is, we dig some valve here, that is called as a bootstrapping, so that it comes down to original position. Like that, where whenever you do some additional multiplication, so always you need to do some bootstrapping like this. Repeat until done. So there are BFE. There are so many encryption schemes available in literature, and you can directly have there are some libraries also, that is called as a Microsoft Seal library, HCLIB library. So like that, so many libraries are also available in. So you can use directly those libraries for the encryption of any image or any vector or any integers. So different efficiency improvements here. So here, if you go for a more security, means you have to spend much time for doing these all operations. So you can see here, in 2009, these much of time is required to do encryption. In 2010 and in 2011, like this, time will be reduced while doing the encryption, and proportionally security also withstand. So these are some references you can see. And finally, thank you. Hello? Okay.
Yes, sir. We're just waiting for the participants to type
Okay.
anything, actually.
If you have any queries, you can ask me now. Hello?
Sir, there are no queries from audience side, it seems.
Okay.
With the case, so thank you so much for the wonderful session what you have rendered today, sir. Actually,
Okay.
we have we're fortunate to have you. Even your timing is totally different, and the meanwhile you just came here and presented a very good session for us. Thank you so much. As a part of, STTP, we are happy to have you the afternoon session. Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you,
madam.
sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, participants. Yeah. So we'll meet you by tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, for the 6th day session of us. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.